Greetings and welcome to Star Trek Discovery Pod, a sometimes funny, trying to be smart podcast covering all things new and classic Trek. I'm ready for this crew to be as disorderly as the Cerritos. I am your
Not
captain,
cool. Shots
Myrriah
fired.
Gossett.
Phasers fired. Doo, 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 doo. That's
Hey, the doctor said it, not I.
yeah.
With me on the view screen, we have
Clyde Haynes, let's do this.
And Paul Satachit, who does not speak Murph.
Murph. I was trying to I got to work on my Murph impression, but tonight we are talking about Star Trek Prodigy episodes 5, 6, 7, and 8. But before we dive into our discussion of these particular episodes of Star Trek Prodigy from season 2, Paul, where can people find information about the show? Maybe they want to click the link to buy some merch, or maybe they want to share the show with a friend. Where are the places they could go to find all that stuff?
Please, everyone, please subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. All links are at StarTrekPod.co. And if you love our content or hate our content or somewhere in between, you might want to join our Patreon for just $2 per episode at patreon.com/Star Trek Pod. Murph.
Murph. And Clyde, if people are hanging out with us tonight live
Right,
on
black too. Oh,
what? Am I still here?
You're
I
there,
see.
but the taco says you're black.
Oh no. I'll
That was a strange comment, but
Yeah.
okay.
I am wearing a black t-shirt.
Her screen is black. It's on the comments.
Yeah, the screen is black. I'm going to refresh the page, but while I do that, Clyde, can you tell people how to participate during the chat?
Well, if you pick up a forever stamp, you can write us a letter and just drop it in the mail. We'll get your comments, assuming that we have a mailbox. And then eventually, snail mail works pretty well. We'll see your comment. No, seriously, all jokes aside, if you want to make us a comment, just type capital P, capital O, capital T, capital pod in the chat, and we will take a look at your comment, your question, your musings. And in a moment, just type capital HF for your hot Paul Satachit.
There you go.
And we'll get your
hot
we'll get your thoughts. Your hot
We'll
Pauls, your
get some
HPs.
Hot Frake Paul Murphs very soon. Am I back? Can
Ooh,
everyone see
hot
me?
Murphs.
Hot Murphs.
Hot Murphs.
All right. Hopefully the
Yes.
refresh was helpful. I'm
We
at
can
an
see you.
Airbnb. So far, the Wi-Fi has been pretty decent, but who knows what can happen. Yeah, I think it is time for that time. But before we get into that time, let's read some messages from the menagerie. From Karen, we have these 4 are a great lead up. We have some pretty standalone type episodes before going into what is going to feel very serial. Hashtag spoiler alert, Karen. The Fast and the Curious was my least favorite, but maybe the most classic Star Trek. An Evil Computer. I do wonder about these tendril things that get Hollow Gwen. They're pretty terrifying. Is There in Beauty No Truth is a visually stunning episode. Doll also seems to be featuring quite a bit. Thank you for sharing. Again, if you join us over on the Patreon, you can share your messages to the menagerie. So even if you can't make the live stream, you let us know what you think and hear it on the pod. And with that in mind, I do think it is time for us to have some
Hot freaks! Hot freaks!
some hot Paul Frank Murphs, if you will.
Hot Murphs. Hot Paul Murphs.
Hot Murphs.
Hot Murphs. Paul, what did you think of these 4 episodes?
I thought they were great. Prodigy. I don't think they lived up to the first 4, which I thought was great Trek. But that's a high bar to start with anyway. But I think these 4 episodes remind us that it is a kids show, and and the kid showness about it is in full effect, but not in a bad way. It's just that's the genre.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'd say it definitely is easy to not pay attention but still know what's going on with some of these episodes in that kids show way, right? Like things and themes and things get repeated. But it's still beautiful show. It's really touching. I think the themes and the plot are really fun. I will say the episode for me that really stood out is Number 8, is there beauty, no truth? Is there in beauty, no truth? Excuse me. I just thought was like, to me, a very Trekkie episode in
Sure.
the morality and the quandary and the questions that are posed to our characters there. But we'll dive into that.
We just
in
go
a
to
few.
Clyde, like, when we get to it.
We'll just throw to
Thanks.
Clyde. Clyde, what did you think about these episodes?
So as Paul alluded to, unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to see the 8th episode, so I won't be able to talk very much about that. And I think part of that is because I have to agree with Paul. The first 3 felt much more like a kids show, and all, it was much harder for me to get through them. Right, like the first 4, I felt like boom, I just knocked them out, and these last 3, like I was going, but I was kind of like, okay. Hijinks, hilarity ensues. All right, you're gonna try and steal the ship, and let's create clones, and those clones, let's get into a fight. And it did feel like a little bit like, oh, I'm watching the shows that my kids watch. Got it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but again, it's set in the Star Trek world, so there are these little nods. The doctor's joke about the Cerritos, I thought was really funny. Like I was
Mm-hmm.
like, that was hilarious.
Photons fired. Not cool, man.
Yeah, so
Not
I mean,
cool.
it definitely was, like throwing shade, but on the other hand, it was nice to reference, hey, we're all in the same universe. So I
Mm-hmm.
dug that. But yeah, so I thought it was okay. Wasn't bad. It was good for a kids show.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought they set the bar pretty high for the first 4 episodes, and I'm not quite sure they got it this time.
Yeah, I mean, I think inevitably there's going to be ups and downs when you have a larger episode order. Also, we are adults
20.
watching. We are adults watching a children's show, and I still think it is firing on all cylinders for a children's show. I think
Yeah.
there's some very sophisticated themes. I think the animation, as usual, we've talked about, is incredible. So why don't we go ahead and start with the Observer's Paradox? I thought this one, for instance, had some really just like fun scenes when we have them essentially trying to get to the bottom of what does Murph speak, which I thought was a very classic kids plot trope of like, how do you understand people you don't understand? Like, I think the lessons that are being put forth are really cute and fun, and they're doing it in a very Star Trek way. Also, we finally have like a full usage of cetacean ops, which I appreciated, because I feel like oftentimes it's just used for the gag and the joke, but this time our whale friend Jillian comes to the rescue to help us translate Murph. But I appreciate that we got to kind of see all of the characters make their way through sort of their talents and things like that. But what did you think of us inevitably getting to Murph speak?
Well, I'll jump in and say I wasn't expecting it, but the whole idea that you have a character that you can't understand, like no one can understand, and you're raising the stakes of what they're going through. Like it was fine early on when I feel like their missions were fairly simple and could be depicted with just like a point, like go over there. Now you're asking them to, in Star Trek form, dialogue about science, right? And explain complex things.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense that they would start to say, hey, why don't we bring some communication to Murph, and really like build out that character. Like we've seen this in a lot of sitcoms where you've got a character who doesn't talk, right?
Right.
It works as a joke and as in a sitcom, but it's limiting. And so I think this is a good thing to do if you're gonna kind of make Murph a truly 3-dimensional character.
Yeah, and I thought it was fun to see Murph transform into essentially Murph Mermaid. I thought it was really
Murph
cute.
Maid.
Murph Maid. Again,
Murph
going back
Man.
to my preferred morph form though is the cute ball of goo.
Yeah, Balgu.
I know why we had to give Murph like legs and arms, but I think Slug Murph is still my favorite Murph. But Mermaid Murph is pretty close in contention.
Well, there we go.
I wanted to ask y'all about, I thought the coolest sequence of the episode was when Gwen essentially goes through multi phases and travels through space-time essentially. And if you from that have any, I felt like that and potentially the last episode kind of give us a potential like clue as to who is calling out to Gwen, but any theories that arise after episode 5 for you after we have this moment with Gwen traveling through space-time?
No, I just assume it's Chakotay. I mean, like that's what they're
It
leading.
seems really violent though, or
Yeah, I don't know.
scary at least.
I don't know what to say. The last time I traveled through time and like changed my temporal phase discriminator, it's pretty accurate.
If you had a temporal phase armband, what 4 periods of time would you want to travel through?
Clyde, there you go.
What period of time are we talking? The past or the future?
Any direction. It's space-time. You can go any direction.
Oh, then I'm gonna go hang out with Michael Burnham in the future.
Solid
Or
choice.
I'm gonna go to, I guess for us, it would be classic TNG, where like there are no problems and everything is solved and life is just grand. No greed, no money, no violence. It's fantastic.
So like
I
prior
might-
to Klingon War.
Yeah.
I guess
prior to the
post-Klingon War.
Dominion, all that stuff. We're just like,
Yeah.
life is cool. That might be a fun place to hang out for a little while.
But that's like basically 20 years ago in our time. Not even that, like 10 years ago, right? Like that's where they are right now, right? Are the Romulans? Let's see, where would I want to go? I might go for Kirk.
Hmm.
You know, like I felt the uniforms were
Tight.
stylish. Yeah,
Very
stylish.
form-fitting.
I think there was a more of a Western feel. If I feel like the moment I go in TNG, I'm like Barkley, and I'm just stuck in the holodeck forever. I'm a holodeck addict. I think that's just the situation.
I mean, I hear your point. I mean, the thing about Kirk is all the aliens look like us. And if you meet an alien, especially a female alien, then you got to deal with the fact that Kirk's going to get her. So there's like no dating options. It's just like Kirk gets all the girls. And for me, a guy who's currently wearing a red shirt, that's kind of a problem. That would
gotta
not
think
work for me.
hard about the wardrobe.
Oh, well,
Yes,
it's
wardrobe
really weird.
choices are clutch.
It's really weird, Clyde, because I'm married and I'm happily married. So like, if I go to the future, I'm still not going to cheat on my wife. But like, but now we know something about you. It's okay. It's okay. It's totally okay. I'm not judging. I'm not judging.
I was not speaking for myself. I was speaking
as a
generally.
As a red shirt, I have to ... I'm just it's cool. It's cool. I'm really just happy that we are able to talk so freely on this podcast where hundreds of thousands of millions of people are going like, oh my God, that Clyde, oh, he must have a really firm relationship with his wife to just like casually put that out there. Oh my God. Goals, Clyde, goals.
Well, I would want to at least see some dinosaurs for like a minute, and then I think I would also join y'all in the future. Clyde has left the chat; he can't take it. Yeah. Paul, you've scarred Clyde.
You broke me, Paul.
Right.
That was a good one. You got me. That was maybe your best one yet. But I take it back. I take that back. I reverse it all. I take it back. I would go to just slightly after TNG so that I can kick it with Peanut Hamper.
Peanut Hamper, boom. Actually, I have exact.
Hanging out with Mariner and Peanut Hamper would be a pretty good time.
So
Agreed.
I would in TNG. Not sorry in what you call it in original series. Kirk goes the second episode with Mud. Like there are a bunch of androids there that like
the
I
sex
feel
bots?
like they're not yes and
It's like they are.
like I think that like Ahura was saying that she could get her mind transferred into like uh a bot body. I was like, oh, that might be a pretty cool thing to do.
Would you
Like,
want to live forever?
no, it's only 15,000 years.
It's only
So
15,000 years. Okay.
I think what I heard you say, Paul, is if given the opportunity, you would like to be a sex bot.
Yes, and like I
Okay.
I challenge anyone to go like, hey, if you could be a near immortal sex bot where you're hot for life, I don't know who goes like, no, that feels wrong. Who says that? I want to grow old and die and decrepit. No one says that.
I
You
don't
know,
know.
15 minutes and the pod has gone off the rails. Not a record for us
Derailed.
by any means.
No,
but
we've
you know
entered
what?
hot dog chat way sooner than this.
Absolutely. But you know what? In a week where we are saying rest in peace, Dr. Ruth,
Yeah.
it seems fitting for us to
Yeah.
have to talk about sex bot chat. I mean, that works.
Dr. Ruth and Richard Simmons. What a week. Okay. Observer's Paradox. Yeah. Again, it's just adding to our mystery. We've got some Murph translation. Gwen's starting to pick it up, and then we dive into imposter syndrome, which Dahl and his friends create holograms of themselves to take place while they attempt to steal the ship, which I thought was like pretty classic hijinksy plan. You know, got to create a distraction, find a way for no one to this is a kid's show. We are an adult podcast though, Choopy. We're an adult podcast.
And we do not talk about sex pots.
No pots.
No pods.
Just bots.
Just bots.
Just bots, no pots. We're not, this isn't a cooking show, only hot dog chat or ice cream conversations. Right. However, what did you think of our hologram shenanigans, if you will? It felt like a pretty classic Trek episode.
It felt like a great kids episode. Like if I was gonna show my kids a random episode, really that's probably
good intro one. Yeah.
Right. But I do want to say Miguel is secretly becoming my either second favorite character or favorite character. She's up there with Gwen. Like I'm like, I like the way she's a part of the show.
Oh, I understand. Like, you know, like she might be only 70 years old, Clyde. So I don't know if if you're dating too young there.
Whoa, I'm not talking about that. Like I said, happily married.
Happily married, that's right.
What I'm saying is, just as a character, again, I like that scene where she says you have to protect your real friends. Was like, oh wow,
but she ghosted them. Like she kind of like she dissed them earlier, right? Where she was at the table and he goes, "Do you want to sit here?" And then her Nova Squad friends, like classic Mean Girl type stuff.
Well, I think what it was she just had this experience, so she went back to the friends that she knew. But she realized, you know what? I'm not really part of Nova Squad. Like I'm in Nova Squadron, but I'm just waiting for her to end up as part of like this crew.
Yeah.
Right?
I feel like she's probably realizing it's kind of that, I think, moment when you are, I mean, especially as someone who grew up as like a preteen, preteen girls are perhaps the meanest creatures on the planet.
I hate them.
Speaking as a previously menace to society preteen
and
girl.
as a dad of a preteen girl, it's just like,
so sorry.
I'm
so sorry.
It's terrible. It's just terrible.
But I feel like it's kind of speaking to that, where you think you know what you want out of friends is like a specific group of people, perhaps, who have a reputation that you also want to be a part of that reputation, but inevitably you have to figure out like who are the people you can actually be yourself around. And I feel like that to me is the arc for Miguel, and I think she plays a good, I mean, she's Vulcan, so it's like a good straight man to kind of the chaos that is our ragtag group of kiddos, right?
Totes.
Got to be named after Marshall Barrett from P.W. Gregory. I would assume that's a nod. There's a lot of those nods throughout this show. They do a good job of weaving in, I think, fun Easter eggs. I do think it is interesting to see kind of some bigger plot points for like Janeway in these couple of episodes.
Mhm.
I know it's sort of our C plot, but we have Janeway kind of having to come to terms with her potentially losing Chakotay. We have that scene of them kind of exchanging
rock.
I guess the rock. I guess that's that map that Murph kind of puts together there, which I don't know if y'all watched True Detective Night Country, but the spiral thing was also like a big motif through that season of TV. So it's in the zeitgeist, if you will. But yeah, I feel like we're seeing some pretty, I don't know if the kids get the momentousness of it. I know that I think they've done a good job of setting them up as like, these are important friends, I think, for like longtime Star Trek watchers. And like, I've been trying to avoid spoilers, but there's been a lot of Janeway Chakotay talk on the internet since this season came out. And I think there's a lot of those shippers, if you will, that have sort of regained their flame of of wanting those two characters together.
Is that a term? Shippers?
Yeah, shippers. Yeah.
I did not know that.
You're shipping a couple, shipping two characters. But yeah, I think it's interesting to see that sort of reignited. That was never, it could have been how old I was when I watched Voyager, but I was never really interested in that relationship and what that was. I mean, personally for me, I was only ever really interested in 7 of 9, just being 7 of 9. So that was really it for me, but and I always felt like, well, we have like Paris and B'Elanna, so I don't need another couple on the show, you know.
And Harry and no one.
Oh, Harry.
No one ever.
Oh, Harry.
Poor Harry.
But what do you think of like what do you think of the Chakotay Janeway relation?
I mean, I think they're best friends. Like, if you were on the other side of the universe and you gave me some temporal like message, like I go, oh god damn it, okay, I'll get her.
Yeah, I mean, I think for a kids show, they have set it up to where it's like, yeah, these are friends who mean a lot to each other, and they've done a good job with that. But I mostly mean, what do you think of like the idea of the Chakotay Janeway relationship?
I don't need it. I don't want it. Right?
Yeah.
To me, like I see them and I go mentor mentee.
Really?
Right? It would be like saying, hey, have you ever thought about Jean-Luc Picard and Riker being in a relationship? And I'd be like, why? I don't need that.
Now that would be something that
I mean, I like the idea of having relationships that aren't aren't a romantic relation, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I think that you often you don't often see that with like heterosexual like pairings, and I think you should. Like, so let's not force feed something that seems like it would be a really healthy relationship as a mentor mentee, right?
Yeah.
Or as as colleagues, as friends, where it's like, hey, we've been through some stuff together, right? We're like, we're really close, but it doesn't have to be romantic. Like, there's enough of that. Like, we're already getting the Doll and Gwen vibes. Like, let's keep it there.
And do you think they would make a good couple?
No.
Right?
I mean,
he doesn't drink enough coffee.
It feels very stereotypical, like enemies to lovers situation, right? Just from like the very beginning of their relationship. But I agree that I prefer them as colleagues and friends, and I think it's nice to see I like platonic love is nice. I think
Yes.
platonic love is really nice. I understand people's like shipping of them together, but I think I also it's really hard for me to move past Robert Beltran as a
There,
person.
there you go.
And I love Janeway and I love Kate Mulgrew so much that I'm just like, you deserve better than that.
Wow,
Like,
I think that's your wire to hold, Myrriah. That's your
yeah,
plasma to hold. That's
it's
not
my
enough.
plasma to hold. Yeah, that is mine. That's my opinion.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
think I think for all of it, I don't see them as a couple. I don't like I don't see any spark there. I don't think I ever did. Like like aside from the fact that whereas like with him and Seven, like you're like oh I can see it.
Oh
I can see it.
no.
I did not see that coming
Oh, no, like
at all.
I could totally see it. Like here is this young naive human and this like creepy old man making the moves on her. Like, come on, you see it, right?
I don't want
No.
it. I don't like it.
Like
I don't need
it's. I'm not saying you need it, but I can see how that could happen.
No, see, 7 of 9 is only ever with me or Rafi. And that is how it shall be.
I mean, to me, like 7 of 9 is smoking hot attractive. Smart, like
She's okay.
maybe the smartest character in the show. She's like razor edge, like wit. And you're gonna put her with Chakotay?
I mean, like I'm just saying, like there's a difference between like Picard 7 of 9 and End of Voyager 7 of 9, right? There's a huge difference.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes.
And so, like I don't think Picard 7 of 9 goes for Chakotay.
No, but 7 of 9, Picard 7 of 9 with Rafi makes a lot more sense
Yeah, totally.
than Voyager 7 of 9 with Chakotay.
Well, I mean,
Like Paris would have made more sense than Chakotay.
Like, do you think 7 of 9 would cheat on Paris? Like break up his marriage with B'Elanna? Interesting.
I don't, but I think it would make more sense than her with Chakotay. You know what?
No,
7 of 9 with Harry Kim would have made more sense.
They almost happened. It almost happened.
Yeah,
and then Kim
Harry,
chickened out.
Gotta close the deal.
Harry tried.
Gotta close the deal.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see how Prodigy continues to build the relationship because I think obviously first time viewers to Star Trek and like kids watching this don't have any of this background, right?
Yep.
And so I've been trying to just separate what I know from what the show is presenting. And so far I mean, I understand like I said, I understand the relationship that they've been setting up, and I don't know if it's romantic or anything yet, but I also think it doesn't really need to be. I kind of prefer, I think Clyde, like you said, the Gwyn and Doll, like kind of won't they crush is much more, I think, traditional for kids shows, right? Very Hey Arnold and Helga, the perpetual
boy meets world-ish kind of.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Boy meets world, love it.
All right, shall we dive into the Fast and the Curious?
Fast and Curious.
Very cute. We get the Infinity is now running through a Borg conduit, which we know our crew has encountered the Borg last season. They had a little nod to that. But instead they run into a Kazon, who has now essentially been like, you must drag race for your lives.
A quarter, what is that? I guess
a quarter mile at a time.
Well, I mean, it's space, so it's not a quarter mile. It has to be something like
quarter parsec at a time. It's the wrong series, but that's okay. 1 light year at a time.
1 light year at a time. What?
But I thought this. I
was not funny to you, Paul. Are you not entertained?
Yeah,
are you not entertained?
Gladiator 2. That's right.
Everything that is old is back again. Can you believe we're getting a Gladiator and a Twisters movie this year, y'all?
We're getting a Gladiator movie? I didn't know that. Twister, I'm going to see. I'm going to see Twister in 4D. Watch. Seats
Yeah.
gonna be moving.
I saw
water's
the
gonna be
preview in
spraying.
4D. It was an experience. So good luck holding on to your popcorn.
No. 4D. Don't bring popcorn. Don't bring a soda.
You don't
4D.
need to bring anything.
You don't bring anything. You just you barely need your cell phone. You got to have good pockets. Like
No,
Very
like
good
buckle
pocket.
up.
so it just seems like it's like the Matrix where like they're in the chair and all of a sudden they get beat up.
Good stuff.
It's very that. But I got really excited when they got kind of pulled out of the conduit, because I always love when we randomly crash a ship into a very wintry looking planet and have something to accomplish. Again, classic Star Trek. I think they're doing a good job on the show of grabbing elements and tropes kind of in the same way that Lower Decks does, right? Like it's things that you can find that are familiar, that make you feel like you're within the universe of the show, but definitely repackaged in a way that is the brand of the show. But what did you think of our little space race? And then we also had the classic, the computer trying to take over the world, We
Yeah,
had
have we
another
had one of
peanut
those?
hamper
But have
situation.
we had one of those in Prodigy yet?
I don't think we've had one in Prodigy.
I mean, they're a little late. I mean, I was surprised. I was like, I thought that was my first thought. Well, my that was my second
Well,
thought.
I mean, technically there was the ship, right, in season
Sure,
one.
sure. Yeah, and the construct,
Mhm.
And the construct. I was like, because this is a theme that you have to have in Star Trek. You've not had a
Mhm.
successful season if you haven't had one of these themes.
Right.
But my first thought was like when I heard when Zero says this is Kazon technology, I stopped whatever I was doing and looked up and was like, okay, let's see where this goes.
Mhm.
I was like, hello. And I was kind of excited about that nod to like there's definitely these things of like I don't know if you get these if you're watching this brand new fresh and you've never seen Star Trek before.
Yeah, I'll post to the chat and to our listeners. We potentially might bring on some newbie Trek guests in August to watch some Prodigy with us to kind of be our barometer of is this making sense to non-Trekkies,
sure.
which I think would be interesting to see what they think of all of it. I do love the trope of the villain giving you the entire plan as it's talking to Zero of like, let me tell you my giant crazy plot of what I'm going to do. And that's something that happens in adult movies, let alone just kids.
Yeah, monologuing, baby.
Gotta have that villain monologue.
Mm-hmm.
I was very like a little emotional watching Zero like essentially rip apart their body to save their friends.
Huh. I wasn't.
Oh,
Like
I was.
I did
Really?
watch it at like 10 o'clock at night last night while eating a chocolate bar. So maybe it was just
I like for me, I'm going like, well, they can't get hurt,
I
right?
guess that's true. They're non-corporeal. But what happens if they get like let out of their bubble? I don't know what happens.
Yeah, you do. It makes everyone who looks at it go crazy.
I
Yeah.
know, and that's scary.
But I think
guess.
you got to look at Zero as like a part of the crew,
Yeah.
right? Where it's I mean, Zero at times functions as almost a Data character.
Sure.
And so, like, if Data's arm was ripped out of his socket, you're not looking like, oh, he's gonna die, but you're realizing that this character, who's a critical part of this ensemble, is being hurt. And so, yeah, I was kind of like, oh, and she's got, in this case, Zero's got this big old gash in the middle of her
Glass.
container
Portal.
portal, and just you're like, oh, are they okay? And you want to make sure they're okay. So yeah, I definitely felt like, oh,
Like,
how are they gonna fix
maybe I'm-
Zero? And
maybe I'm broken because I'm going like, oh, it's just Data's arm. Okay, well, we can give him a new one. Like, it's a different thing, right? Like, it's not, if it was Doll or Gwen.
Maybe it wasn't like emotional over the potential of Zero getting hurt, but more emotional of like, would you sacrifice your body for your friends?
If I could get a new one because it's a robot, if I was at the
guess so.
Harvey Mudd, and I could just
Get a different sex bot.
Yeah. I mean, I like. Maybe I'm overly capitalistic, but it just seems like these are. I don't know. Am I being crazy?
Yeah, I mean, I think that whole episode was mostly a lot of like zip zop zopping.
That is exactly how I felt. A lot. It just like gobbledygook Star Trek together, and it felt very Star Trek, and it felt very,
A
like
very kids show, like you're
yeah.
watching a kids adventure show. Yeah. Like
And aside from the fact that Zero's body is like busted up, you could remove that whole episode, and it's fine. Like it wouldn't hurt the serial.
yeah, it doesn't hurt the cereal.
Yeah.
That is true. That is very true. But it does then send them. I appreciate this episode because then I think it sets up, and I'm so sorry,
Yeah.
Clyde, that you haven't watched this episode, but
It's okay.
is there in beauty no truth? Which I think to me was the most Star Trekky episode of the four in the question that it poses, which I think is when Star Trek is the strongest, right?
Sure,
It
sure.
essentially is if you had the choice of immortality and the opportunity to be able to do things you never thought you would be able to do. So to recap, Zero is trying to figure out how to have a different form for themselves to kind of inhabit after the accident on our last episode. And they essentially get a message from another Medusan that's like, hey, if you come over here to Ovidia 5, right? Ovidia 5, we can help you out. And so they get there and they're like, yeah, we can put you in a corporeal form here on this planet. And you'll have the ability to touch, to smell, to taste, to eat. You can do everything, like all these things. So they put Zero into this form. And I thought the forms and the way the Medusans were designed was so cool and very like androgynous, which I appreciated, and interesting. It was some really cool character design. But Paul, what did you think of sort of before we dive into the rite of passage kind of stuff? What did you think of the setup for the Medusans? Were your alarm bells going off, or were you like,
I
oh,
mean,
this is
of course, there's going to be alarm bells going off. Like and it's just not Medusans though. It's Paxons and Calamarains. All these
Mhm.
non-corporeal. Interesting they use Paxons because, like, for all it, Paxons are an episode of in Next Generation where Data is the only one who knows about the Paxons because they're
Mhm.
xenophobes, and all of a sudden, these people go like, "Oh, Paxons! Oh, I know who they are," and the Calamarain are like a non-corporeal entity who try to kill Q in when Q gets turned human.
Mhm.
So it's a refuge for all these people who want to like have corporeal bodies. I think they look cool, Avatar-esque, you
Mhm.
know. But like it's easy to do that. Like I think the planet and the space are designed to be beautiful,
Yeah.
and they were.
Very intriguing. Yeah. Very like the mesmerized, like, classic when like a Kirk and a Spock get a little too mesmerized by the locals, right?
Mhm.
And then
Good.
Ahura has to come and save them situation.
Classic.
But classic. But so essentially they have this like grand feast with the dance and all this stuff. And then it ends with this big ceremony where they're finally to have this experience where they will feel fear. And so it's this like incredible looking stingray things
Sure.
that like fly through the air and eat pollen, but like can essentially gobble you up if they wanted to, or you'll fall off of them if you get caught by accident. Um, I thought it was the running of the Nazamon is what it's called. And it's so the participants can experience a sense of fear while feeding and fleeing from the Nazamon, a manta ray like creature. Um, and their whole thing, though, that the Medusan leader Ion did not disclose is that if you leave the planet, your body will degenerate. So essentially, you can only remain immortal if you stay on the planet, which then was not communicated to Zero. So then Zero has to make the choice if they're going to stay on the planet in their form or if they will leave and slowly deteriorate within their new corporeal body. Which they didn't really establish. Like, do you just age like a regular being, or is it like a rapid onset thing?
Or maybe
That
just your arm starts falling off like a zombie.
I'll be interested in how they sort of like figure it out. But essentially Zero is like, thank you so much, but I'm going to take the risk and I'm going to leave the planet with my friends. But yeah, I guess my question to you both is, if you were given the opportunity to live on an enchanted planet for the rest of your life, which would be forever, or if you left and you'd had to age, what would you choose?
Is my wife with me? Because since
I mean,
if she is,
yeah, I guess, yeah.
I mean, because if she is, then like, and we're happy and everything, and I don't have to leave any loved ones behind, then I'd highly consider it.
Well, I guess for the sake of the sacrifice that Zero would have had to make, right? Like, either stay on the planet, never see their friends again.
Uh-huh.
So you would have to stay on the planet and you could never see your friends again, but you would live forever.
I'm probably gonna take a pass on that.
So interesting. Like, so I have this conversation, and please know that I'm not making this up. I have had this conversation. So I go like, hey, B, my wife's name is B, or Barrington. B, let's say you had the power to travel back and forth through time at will, and you're immortal. But the cost of that power is that we can never be together again. Do you pick it? And she goes, probably. And I say, good, because that's what I would do too. Because if you have the opportunity to like ascend and live like a god, I'm not gonna hold you back. Don't have my little, like corporeal, like, maybe like 50 years of good, and like, then watch a slow decline. Don't let me hold you back. Like, I'll be okay. I'll find someone else. I'll find some croissants. It's gonna be fine. But like, but don't do that. And don't
It's
hold me back.
interesting. I don't know if y'all saw it. So there's been a resurgence of a lot of vampire content lately. I don't know if y'all have seen Nosferatu coming back. We've got Interview with the Vampire, etc., etc. And typically, vampire media really rises during a sense of economic downfall and depression, because it is then this idealized thought of, oh, if you could live forever, and there's the anxiety of life and death and all of that kind of stuff. Anyway, I'll try to find the article and post it in our Slack channel. It was very interesting. And so it's interesting to me, Paul, that you would choose immortality, because in my mind, I'm already so tired that unless I was left with like because what I find interesting of most vampire medium is they never really have to show them struggling to exist.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? They don't have to work. They usually have some sort of like wealth already with them, right? You don't have to go see them go work a day job to exist, unless you're watching What We Do in the Shadows, which is what makes that show kind of funny.
They're not working at Walmart, right?
No,
they're not.
Right.
No.
And so I'm like, oh yeah, if you saddled me with a castle and a bunch of money, dope. But like, if I have to exist as I exist now forever, I don't know.
Okay.
It's a lot of bad bosses, man. There's a lot of bad bosses.
They come out.
Okay, so here I'm a little Paul insight. So I apologize. So a question that I ask a lot of people is, and when I say a lot, I do mean pretty much if you hang around me long enough, you'll get asked this question. The question goes, what would you rather have? The ability to teleport or infinite money? Well, what would you say?
Infinite money.
Infinite money. Very good. Myrriah?
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say teleport because that sounds more fun, but it's also because then I'm like, but could you just teleport in and out of like banks all the time and then have infinite money?
Well,
Yeah,
so
but,
he,
but you've robbed it, and that's a whole nother thing. With infinite
very good,
Yeah.
Clyde. You have redeemed yourself. So here's where it goes. Here, especially if they're under 35, they'll go like teleport because they don't know what it is to really, like pay for mortgage. They go teleport. I go, oh, what would you do with the teleport? Well, I go anywhere I want to go. What are you gonna use for money? Well, all I do is I just teleport into a bank and steal some money and take some money. And I go like, oh, so basically, if you have power, you feel like you're justified to abuse it. And they start backtracking, going, no, no, no. I go, no, you said it. It's out there. Trap.
It's a good trap.
But wait, wait,
But
wait,
the
but
other thing is, though, like if I can teleport, do you know how much money I would save?
not infinite.
But a lot.
But with infinite money, I'm not worried about how much money I can save, and I can
But I'm
have
just
a
saying, if we could all
driver and a
teleport,
helicopter driver, and
here it is.
Yeah.
Helicopter driver. These are all things destroying the planet.
Yep.
This is the generational difference. If we could all teleport, we could save the planet, guys.
There
No
we go.
more private jets, no more cars. We can all just be where we need to be.
There, you're perfect.
Teleportation.
And yeah, obviously you were right, Myrriah. But I've only had one person like ever answer it truly correctly, where he goes, "I get teleport," and I go like steal money, and they go like, so all of a sudden like stealing is okay, and you just use it to, and he goes, "Yes, I am now a god, and the laws of man no longer apply to me." I go, "Boom! That is so good. That is a good answer. That is like a truthful from the core answer." Like and I feel I feel that way. Like I feel like if you have like even if you're a vampire, like a Walmart working vampire, like the rules of man no longer apply to you.
yeah,
Like
but,
you can find other you could more nefarious ways to get money.
but here's the thing: if you have infinite money, it's not
Uh-huh.
just about stuff I buy for me.
Yeah,
Do you know how many people you could help with infinite money?
four
But do
at
any
least.
of the people with money actually help people?
That's because the wrong people have money.
But I think
Uh,
because you have to be a wrong person to have that level
Well,
of wealth.
actually, and this is a good time. If you enjoyed these episodes, please consider joining our Patreon. For just
So you can
$2.
yell at us what you think about these things.
Yes.
$2 an episode.
Where you two can have the moral quandaries of a Paul
Yes.
question posed
right.
upon you.
And if you'd like to
Um,
have more of these contacts, then feel free to subscribe to us here at Financial Podcast Chat.
That's
right?
right. Hypothetical finance pod.
Hypothetical finance pod.
Sci-fi
Um,
finance.
Sci-fi
Sci
finance.
finance. There we go.
Sci finance. There you go. Our kind of B plot is Janeway and the Doctor obviously finally figure out the holograms are holograms, which was not hard since they all got swippity swappied. They kind of get everyone back into their correct form, but they now realize that they must like find all of these folks.
Sure.
And that something is definitely after Gwen.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure it's the her dad at this
Okay.
point. The voice
Sure.
I think is starting to sound more and more like her dad.
Oh, that'd be
Hmm.
nice. Sure, it could be.
So
Interesting.
that's my
I
thought.
assumed it was Essentia, but
Oh, Essentia could be interesting. The tendrils were interesting.
Sure.
Mhm.
I was like,
It
is that like
reminded
a Murph line? Like a Murph arm?
It looked to me. It reminded me of the Nassim, which are the caretakers of Voyager.
Oh, that could be an interesting theory.
Yeah, like it's not Myrriah theory,
It's a
but like,
Paul theory.
but like like basically they freeze time and then start sneaking. Like this, I don't know that Nassim really freeze time, but like I don't know.
Yeah, that could be interesting. That could be interesting. Listeners, let us know what your theories are. You can tell us in a Apple review. You can tell us over on the Slack if you join the Patreon. You can also just leave a comment here on the YouTube if you're watching or listening to this later, not during the live chat. We would love to know. Anything else to say about these episodes? Clyde, I'll be really interested in what you think about this once you get to it, because I think it spurred quite a conversation for us into all sorts of interesting directions. So I think it does pose something very like a big question for kids to ponder.
I'll let you know as soon as I finish it, probably later tonight.
Yeah. Paul, what any other thoughts?
I don't know. Like I think like I think they started strong with the 4. I think they
Mhm.
need to get to the next 2 episodes, which would be effectively 9 and 10, which is the mid-season.
Mhm.
So I feel like these are all kind of episodic by design. Like the first 4 forced you into the
The
serial
plot.
arc.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The seasonal, and now these 4 are. So I had to evaluate I had to evaluate it as such.
Yeah.
And and there are some episodics that are better than others, but like ultimately the best episodics that stand out that aren't forgotten are the ones that have a strong message and theme. Like like one of my favorites is um the the data trial in TNG, like the Measure of a Man. Like and that was like just a random episode, and it wound up being like one of like these episodes that like define what the series is, and it's just a one episode as opposed to like here's the mid-season finale, or here's the season finale, or something designed for it. And so in that way, I think maybe the last episode might be that for this, like
Mm.
for the Zero Gets a Body episode. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think it's one that I would say stands out a lot, in the same way of like, I think imposter syndrome is a great one to introduce kids to. I would say Is There in Beauty No Truth would be one if I was like trying to get some of my my friends to
Sure.
watch the show. I might point to and be like, oh, this one I think you would like, and like let me know what you think. Yeah, I think it's a great app. Anything to plug or promote this week, y'all?
I got nothing.
I will say that I was recently in the kind of greater Chicagoland area, particularly around Indiana, Munster, Indiana, and went into this coffee shop that's called Beam Me Up
Beam me up.
Roasters.
Oh,
And it's a
fun.
sci-fi themed, and one of the things that they talked about is how much Janeway loved coffee and kind of inspired them
Oh, I
to
love it.
create a coffee shop.
That's so
Um,
cute.
Do they
and
call it
so
beam me up or bean me up?
I think it's Beam Me Up. Let me see.
Like a coffee bean.
Mm-hmm.
Or is it like laser beam?
Let me see. Beam.
While Clyde is looking that up, I thought I would let y'all know that I am currently sound designing a really fun, wild adventure improv podcast with 2 really great actors, Chris Renfro and Finn Argus. So if you want a queer comedy, improv, magical, mystical time, you can check that out. It's called One of Us with Finn and Chris, wherever you get your podcasts.
It's bean as in coffee bean. So
Good.
bean
Cute.
me up.
That's the correct. That's the correct
That's the
answer.
correct pun. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I took
Super
a picture outside their kind of, they've got this big wall mural. I'll post it on our Slack channel. But
Cool.
yeah,
There you go.
pretty good
Cute.
cup
Support
of coffee.
small
And
business.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I met the owners. They're really cool, big sci-fi people. And it was like, hey, we didn't see something like this. And so they started their own business. Husband and wife team. It's great.
Wow.
That's so fun. Yes, we will be back next week. I know Comic-Con starts next week. We are not at Comic-Con this year. Sad face.
That's sad.
But we'll see if we can go back next year. I know there's going to be lots of announcements, lots of things going on. Our friends over at Strange New Pod, I think, are doing some coverage points. Giraffe is going to be hanging out there, so you can definitely check out our pals for some more up to the beat coverage. But as news comes out and things come out from Comic-Con, we'll keep y'all posted as well. Excited to see. There's been some more casting announcements for Academy. That looks pretty fun. I'm excited to see that trickling out. Lots of young, new faces, which makes sense because it is an Academy show.
Cool.
But I'll be excited to see what they do with that. But until next time, y'all, live long and prosper.
Beat me up.
Bye-bye.